Hi everyone, it's me Anna, and today we're doing a book haul because I have read all the books that were on my physical TBR like previously. So it's time to update my TBR, and there are currently 10 books on my physical TBR, and basically we're just gonna be going through all these books today, reading the premises of them, discussing them, just talking about all these books, my most anticipated reads probably too, and I also want to include my 5-star predictions in this video. So yeah, I think we're going to talk about them at the end of this video. I also didn't want to get too many books for this, new updated physical TBR because there are some new series on this TBR right now, and I might get the second and third books in these trilogies. There are trilogies, not really big series, but still I think that, yeah, I might get the next books in these trilogies right after I read the first ones. That's why I decided to wait until I read the first books in these trilogies, and then I'll probably get the rest of the series. That's why we only have 10 books to talk about today. And yeah, let's talk about the first book, and that is The Poppy War, our first trilogy. This is the first book. This trilogy is an Asian historical fantasy series based on the Sino-Japanese War. I've heard incredible things about this trilogy. I've heard bad things about this trilogy, especially from those who were born in China. And I've heard someone who was born in China say that this book isn't 100% accurate or something like that, and they didn't really like how the author tied all those historical events into the story. But I've also heard very good things about this series. Honestly, I considered getting into this trilogy for the first time last year, but I didn't, because then I thought that I wasn't ready, and that this trilogy would just have too many triggers for me, and I was like, no, I'm not ready to read this. And then I think by the end of 2025, or maybe in 2026 already, I just thought that I actually wanted to read it. Now I'm 100% ready. I am already currently reading the first book, The Poppy War. I am absolutely loving this so far, and I also never thought I'd be so fascinated and so impressed by fight scenes and not even just fight scenes, but fight techniques explained in this book, just in a book in general. Like, I never thought I'd be so invested in fight techniques in a book, and well, I am very, very fascinated by everything I'm reading so far. So I'm really enjoying this. I'm gonna give you my full opinion later when I finish the book, but I'm so happy I finally started this trilogy. The next book I've got on my physical TBR is Jade City, the first book in the Greenbone saga, which is a trilogy, and I don't really know anything about this book, so let's read the premise together. But why I bought this is because I've been hearing and just seeing this trilogy everywhere. Everyone is so obsessed with this trilogy, with the characters, especially with the characters. I've actually heard that this author, her name's Fonda Lee, is very good at writing characters. I think we all love good characters because it just feels so nice when you're attached to a character. All I know is that it's an urban fantasy about this family. Like, we follow a family in this book, siblings. Let's read the premise. Family is duty, magic is power, honor is everything. For centuries, honorable Greenbone warriors have used magical jade to enhance their abilities and defend the island of Kikon from a foreign invasion. Now the war is over, and a new generation vies for control of Kikon's bustling capital city. 4 siblings of the powerful Cole family must prepare for battle, and the fragile peace between the clans is about to break. Okay, so we have an Asian-inspired metropolis. This is an Asian urban fantasy about a family, about these Greenbone warriors who enhance their abilities by using jade, magical jade. I think the magic system revolves around jade in this series. I also love this cover. I don't think I've read many urban fantasies, so I'm just still like getting into this subgenre. We'll see how it goes. If I like the first book, I'll obviously get the rest of the series. Next up is Verity, a thriller. I remember being curious about this book 2 years ago, I think, even before I started hearing reviews on this one and just seeing people talk about this. I remember seeing it at the store and being like, oh, this cover looks so interesting. It looks magical. I think at first I thought that it was some kind of a fantasy, but it's not. It's actually a thriller, and the film adaptation comes out this fall. I decided that I do want to watch the adaptation because I've been hearing a lot of reviews on this book lately, and most of them are so positive. And I think I like thrillers. It's not my typical genre that I normally read, but I like a good thriller once in a while. I just decided that I want to read the book first and then watch the adaptation because I just love reading books and then watching the adaptations. It's just the perfect experience for me as a reader and as someone who also loves movies. So we follow a writer who's on the brink of financial ruin when she accepts the job offer of a lifetime. Jeremy Crawford, husband of best-selling author Verity Crawford. Okay, so Verity is her name. Oh no, it's not her name. Oh, there's two authors, I think, two writers in this book. Anyway, Jeremy Crawford, husband of best-selling author Verity Crawford, has hired Lowen, who is our protagonist, I'm guessing, to complete the remaining books in a successful series his injured wife is unable to finish. Okay. Lowen arrives at the Crawford home ready to sort through years of Verity's notes and outlines, hoping to find enough material to get her started. What Lowen doesn't expect to uncover in the chaotic office is an unfinished autobiography Verity never intended for anyone to read. She decides to keep the manuscript hidden from Jeremy, knowing its contents could devastate the already grieving father. But as Lowen's feelings for Jeremy begin to intensify, she recognizes all the ways she could benefit if he were to read his wife's words. After all, no matter how devoted Jeremy is to his injured wife, a truth this horrifying would make it impossible for him to continue loving her. I want to say that the premise itself doesn't intrigue me as much as people's opinions on this book. I have been meaning to read this book for a long time, but it's not like I'm just dying to read it only because of how the premise sounds. No, the premise does sound interesting, but I think that all these reviews I've been hearing lately have also influenced me to finally buy this book, as well as the film adaptation coming out this fall. The next one is Artemis by Andy Weir, who wrote Project Hail Mary, and I have read Project Hail Mary. I've seen the adaptation, loved both. I also think that adaptation based on the book called Project Hail Mary is one of the best film adaptations I've ever seen. So I really loved it, and I think you probably know what adaptation or what book I'm talking about because it's so popular right now. It's so viral right now. Anyway, Artemis is another science fiction book that I want to pick up soon. I want to say that I'm not really interested in other books from Andy Weir. I'm not really interested in this type of literature in general because while I loved Project Hail Mary, I think the setting that is present in this type of book isn't my comfort setting, if you know what I mean. And while I loved the plot and the characters in Project Hail Mary, the setting really made me feel uncomfortable, and sometimes it's good, Of course, because some things are supposed to make you feel uncomfortable in a book. Sometimes that's the whole point of it. But what I'm talking about right now isn't the point of Project Hail Mary at all. It's just a setting. It's like a spaceship, right? So I'm not particularly drawn to this specific type of science fiction, but this book sounds very interesting to me because we're not inside a spaceship the entire time. I don't even know if there is a spaceship in this book. I read the premise before and it really caught my attention. That's why I decided to buy this book, but I don't really remember anything. I just remember that the setting is not a spaceship. Like, we're set in a city or like on another planet. Jasmine never signed up to be a hero. She just wanted to get rich, not crazy rich like many of the visitors to her hometown of Artemis. So Artemis is her hometown. Humanity's first and only lunar colony, just rich enough to move out of her coffin-sized apartment, rich enough to pay off a debt she's owed for a long time. So when a chance at a huge score finally comes her way, just can't say no. But engineering the perfect crime is just the start of her problems, because her little heist is about to land her in the middle of a conspiracy for control of Artemis itself. Trapped between competing forces, pursued by a killer and the law alike, she'll have to hatch a truly spectacular scheme to have a chance at staying alive and saving her city. Jazz is no hero, but she's a very good criminal. That'll have to do. That sounds so good to me. I like when a character is in a very uncomfortable situation. So we're basically set in this city called Artemis, and our protagonist somehow gets to participate in a crime. That sounds interesting, and that is also sci-fi. Honestly, I'm a little intimidated to get into this book. It's not too long, by the way. It's just about 300 pages long, so it's not too intimidating in that way, but it is intimidating still. Because of all these pictures, I'm scared. Like, on one hand, they're supposed to make everything just more digestible, I guess, for the reader, but on the other hand, just looking at all of this makes me feel intimidated. So Artemis is the one and only science fiction on my current physical TBR. Yellowface. This is another thriller about a writer. I've just been reading everything this author R.F. Kuang has put out so far, and so Yellowface is obviously one of her books. I'm curious to see what her writing style in this book is like, and I'm simply curious to read a thriller from her. When failed writer June Hayward witnesses her rival Athena Liu die in freak accident, she sees her opportunity and takes it. So what if it means stealing Athena's final manuscript? So what if it means borrowing her identity? And so what if the first lie is only the beginning? Finally, June has the fame she always deserved, but someone is about to expose her. What happens next is entirely everyone else's fault. I've heard that the protagonist in this book is very unlikable, and I think I want to read a book with an unlikable protagonist, because I feel like that's just something that you don't normally encounter in books. At least I have never encountered it, or maybe I have, but not many times. I'm not like dying to read it, honestly. I only bought this because I loved one of those books that I've read from her, and I'm also loving The Poppy War, which I'm currently reading. So yeah, I just want to read everything she's put out, and Yellowface is simply one of her books. The next one is Dreamcatcher by none other than Stephen King. I just keep working through his backlist. Once in a while I just go to the bookstore and see what Stephen King books they've got, and I just grab one that is speaking to me, one that I feel like reading at the moment. Dreamcatcher was one of those books a couple of months ago when I got it. I know that we follow a group of friends here. In Derry, Maine, 4 young boys once stood together and did a brave thing, something that changed them in ways they hardly understand. A quarter of a century later, the boys are men who have gone their separate ways, although they still get together once a year to go hunting in the north woods of Maine. But this time is different. This time a man comes stumbling into their camp, lost, disoriented, and muttering about lights in the sky. Before long, the old friends are plunged into a terrifying time confrontation. This premise kind of reminds me of It in a way, because in It we also follow a group of old friends that gather in the present and share their memories of their past. I'm also guessing that this might be about UFO. I thought that Stephen King only had one book about UFO, which is The Tommyknockers, but this one seems to be about UFO too. I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's like entirely about UFO. Maybe there is a UFO concept, some, I don't know, UFO elements in this book, but the point is not, you know, the UFO. But why I'm thinking that is because there are some headlines from newspapers, something. They are all about aliens, UFO, something like that, like at the beginning, at the very beginning of the book. Yeah, we'll see. I'm very intrigued. I haven't heard much about this book. I don't know what people think about it. I don't know what the majority of Stephen King fans think about it. We'll see. The next one is another thriller, The Ending Writes Itself by Evelyn Clark. Evelyn Clark is not one person, it's actually two writers. So they collaborated and wrote this book. This is about a group of writers who arrive on this island to finish a famous author's book. Each of them probably wants to be chosen, and then I guess something happens that our characters probably need to resolve. I honestly don't have any expectations for this book. I heard the premise, I heard about this release a few months ago, and I thought I might like this book. Our next book is The Sword of Kaigen, an Asian high fantasy. And the thing is, I've been wanting to read this book for just the longest time. First of all, I'm so happy that I own this book, that it's finally on my TBR. But the thing is, I've also been looking for a Japanese-inspired fantasy. I didn't know it was Japanese-inspired. I had no clue. And when I received this book and opened it, I saw these are not Japanese characters. I think they're like letters. They're probably not called letters, so I'm sorry if I'm wrong. I don't remember what they're actually called, but all I know is that they're Japanese for sure. I gasped when I opened this book. I was like, is this Japanese inspired? This is crazy. I was flabbergasted, like in the best way possible, because I've been looking for this type of book for so long. And when I realized that I wanted to get this book, when I first heard about it, I still didn't know there's like a Japanese setting in this book. Probably, I don't know what makes this book Japanese inspired. I don't know what Japanese things, you know, were taken and considered while this book was being written. I'm just so excited to find out. I'm so happy. So that is The Sword of Kaigen. I don't want to read the premise, by the way, because I just want to go in blind, not knowing anything, and have the best time with this. I hope it meets my expectations, because I have just the highest expectations for this book. Anyway, I'm super excited, and I'm just the happiest person on earth right now. The next book sounds unique. I've never read anything like this before, I think, and that is A Stage Set for Villains. This is a romantasy, I think, and the magic in this world is based on acting. Central figures are theater and acting. The central themes, I think, is a more correct way to put it. I don't know the plot of this book, so let's read it together. The performers of the playhouse are as worshipped as they are feared. Their enchanting shows bending hearts, minds, and even reality itself. 18-year-old Raven Hasper knows the dangers better than anyone after her own encounter with a player resulted in a curse that is slowly killing her. When the playhouse announces the spectacle of a lifetime, a chance for one mortal to steal a player's immortality, Raven sees her last chance to live. Desperate for answers, she infiltrates the competition. There she finds Jude, the playhouse's brilliant, merciless lead player, whose charm is as dangerous as his craft and strikes a deadly bargain to save her life. But with time running out and the playhouse's secrets unraveling into a disturbing picture, Raven faces a grim possibility. She might not be the hero of her story after all. In fact, she may be the villain, because the playhouse doesn't just tell stories, it rewrites them, and Raven's might end in blood. That sounds very cool. I just read this premise for the first time, and I'm now even more excited to pick this up, honestly, because the magic, okay, this world, the setting, the magic, the setting, like we're set. I mean, I don't think the entire book is set in a theater or anything, but there are theaters, okay? There are a lot of things revolving around acting and playing. I'll let you know what I think about this book when I read it, but it sounds so good. It sounds very magical, even psychological in a way. It also sounds so fun, so much fun. So that is the stage set for villains. And the last book on my current physical TBR is My Husband's Wife. This stack is just surprisingly full of thrillers, but I think I'm happy about that because I haven't read a thriller in a long time. All I know, and all I should know, I think, about this book is that at the beginning of the story, our protagonist sets off for a run, and when she comes back home, her key doesn't fit. A woman that looks exactly like her opens the door, and our protagonist is the woman, and she's like, "Who are you?" And that woman goes, "Who are you?" Our protagonist is also married, so her husband comes up to the doorstep and he's like, "I don't know you." And our protagonist is like, "Well, but you're my husband, and who is this woman?" But her husband doesn't recognize her. That is basically our premise. I assume there are some psychological elements in this book, but I don't know. Our main character might also be an unreliable narrator. I don't know if that's true, but yeah, it's just my guess. I don't want to know the truth, by the way, so if you've read the book, don't tell me any spoilers, please. But that just sounds insane to me. I've heard good reviews about this book, I've heard bad reviews, but I'm still just super intrigued to read this. Now, my 5-star predictions. Honestly, My Husband's Wife is one of them, because like I said, the premise sounds insane to me, and I think that if, you know, the main plot twist catches me off guard, I'll be just blown away. Yeah, this is my first 5-star prediction. You know, maybe not 5-star prediction, but a 4.7, like, at least, or 4.5 maybe prediction. Another 5-star prediction is, of course, the Sword of Kaigen. This is just my most anticipated read, I think, on this physical TBR, because I'm reading the Poppy War currently, and the Poppy War is, I think, somewhat similar to the Sword of Kaigen in terms of the overall setting. Like, they're both Asian fantasies. The Poppy War is a very historical fantasy. The Sword of Kaigen isn't really classified as a historical fantasy, but I've heard that there are some historical events. Maybe they were just changed for the plot. I'm loving the Poppy War, and I think I'm gonna love this one too. So this is definitely not a 4.5, not a 4.75, but a 5-star prediction. I also think that A Stage Set for Villains is gonna be a very good book. I think I'm gonna rate it high, I hope so. And I also think that Jade City might be a really good read. I'm not like entirely sure I love this book, but I've just heard so many good things about it. And I have read some urban themed books. It's also a fantasy, so yeah, it just sounds good to me. And well, obviously the Poppy War is one of my 5-star predictions too, but I'm already reading it. But yeah, still, I'm not even halfway through yet, so... And now, as I'm 200 pages in, I'm pretty sure it will be, if not a 5-star book, maybe just very close to that. And that, I think, brings us to the end of this video. Let me know what was the last time you went book shopping and what you got, and I will see you in the next video.